I was one of the best in the world in sports that I loved and I still love. Sports life has to come to an end at some point, and you're a reasonably young person when that comes. Any profession, if you want to be very successful, you have to have a laser focus. Investing roles are still people's business. You're doing business with people. You have to be on the road, you have to meet them. The notion why US is so successful in startups is because they're almost promoting it's okay to fail.
How does a world-class tennis player become a private equity investor? Find out in an interview with Mario Ancic.
Mario, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So what are you doing here? What does a tennis ace have to do with technology investments?
Thank you for welcoming me. I'm super excited to be here, and I think that's the story of this podcast. Is going to be how does somebody who was for 15 plus years was making sure that his fans and people who supported him have the best show. Now I'm supporting others to have the best products and support companies. That transition has been very exciting and interesting. Definitely, I can say it's been almost two different lives, but excited to be here and excited about sharing my story.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the story. We're actually here at Infobip, Quantum in Vodnjan, and Infobip is one of your investments. How did that happen? How did you become their investor?
Well, I mean, to get there, we have to take a step back. I think it's fair to say to the audience who maybe some people still when they hear my name, they associate me with tennis, which is something probably into sports, which is something I'll always have. But for last 11 years, when my life kind of turn it upside down, and when I made that transition to the business due to my health reasons, that I was forced to stop playing sports that I loved and that I gave my life to. The other path took me to United States, took me to Columbia University, took me to Wall Street, took me to finance, and at the moment, as cherry on the cake has been investments that I've made. Been part of the team that's work for One Equity Partners, and we are proudly, we can say, partners to Infobip founders, and we're supporting them last couple of years into this exciting growth story that we're all part of.
So how did that came to be?
Yeah.
That came to be, well, it's interesting. We've started talking to Isabel, Roberto, and Silvio completely by accident, which most of the things do happen like that. Through our friends in the business world in Croatia, we were introduced to them as a company that's been growing, but everybody knowing Silvio, Roberto, and Isabel know that they're basically keeping such a low profile. That at that time when we met them first time, we were like, great story, CPAS, interesting, but
very unassuming.
Our mouth dropped when they told us how much revenues they had. I don't know, can I say it here, but doesn't really matter. It's just they were already company that's had a very, it was a very sizable company already at the time, and we were looking together with my colleague Ante, who's also at One Equity Partners. We were looking and saying how the beep we did not hear about this company, because we're both Croatians, we're both in New York, we both work in private equity. Our job is to find and look for companies in United States and in Europe that we can back, and our whole growth story for our fund has been supporting managers, supporting founders in further acquisition, further expansion. So we're how is this possible? We felt we know all the but I think it just tells you the great people, first of all, that the founders are very, very down to earth, very focused on the company, very focused on giving themselves their time, reinvesting constantly their bootstraps since the beginning, providing the best service they can give without any spotlight, without asking for anything in return in that sense. And as soon as we start talking, we're like, well, obviously, after some discussions, we said, well, we would love to get more in depth, as usually the way the process works is obviously you start scanning a little bit more and more, you gotta ask more and more and more information, and we then start our diligence into the whole CPaaS space, which became almost, it is in my life now. And that's the beauty of what I do now, is in companies you invest, they become your, that's what you live and breathe with. So then that's how we started. We start having these discussions. It took some time. We met in Croatia, we met in London, we met in all these several meetings where we were trying to figure out how we can help, because they're bootstrap. We say, listen, like, if there are some sizable things that we think would make sense, we can help you. Otherwise, you guys are on a great path. We can only come and support. So I think in discussions that we had, in the changes that were happening in the CPaaS world, in consolidation that were starting to happen, I think they realized that they would like to have a partner that can help them in this side of the business, with equity, with expertise, with strategy and things. So together with them and the team, we've highlighted, and this is what we usually do, is we highlighted regions and companies that would make sense for us to go and put them together with Infobip. So we highlighted US is obviously a big chapter of the future growth for Infobip. And but again, as I mentioned, the best things in life happen for just by accident, and this happened too. I got a phone call one day when I was in New York, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, we'll talk about this a bit later on, but I just wanted to make sure that our audience is aware that you're not a VC investor, you're into private equity. Why is that? Why didn't you choose a VC investment career? What was the appeal of private equity for you?
So usually what people do in the business in US and in general is, you spend 2 or 3 years, you go to Wall Street, you go to consulting, where you kind of learn the base and the fundamentals of the business. And then after that, you start making the transition. And if you want to be investor, there's kind of like 4 main avenues. And obviously one is VC, venture capital, private equity, hedge funds, so invest in the public, and the 4th one is like credit investment. So when I was in, making that move, I always kind of enjoy more the private equity type of investing than VC. VC for me, I like to be more. I like the analytical side of the business. I like it's more numeric. You are backing companies that already have, significant record in terms of revenues, margins, growth, and there are, there is a story that you can, of course, make. It's an art and a science, but that was something that was more, personally, I felt it was better for me. VC has obviously been something that, a lot of actually my colleagues from Wall Street went to VCs as well, and they're still doing really well. But just for me personally, I just like more later stage investments and than really early stage investments.
So talking about personal preferences, and moving back a bit, reading some of your earlier interviews, it's obvious that your parents had a lot of a lot of influence on and impacted your career choices, both in tennis and after. A lot of like players don't really invest in their academic career or just like education and so on. You did. Why that choice, and how did it work out for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm always stressing on my interviews, is the value of education. And the reason for regard is I kind of say, use my example. I was one of the best in the world in sports that I loved and I still love. But, the sports life has to come to an end at some point, and you're a reasonably young person when that comes. Obviously the age that now you can say mid-30s, but whatever. But in any case, you're a very young person so there's a whole life after that. That was a team that I like to stress now to a lot of people who are younger now and kind of saying, listen, you can do both. It's not like one or another, number one. And number two, that's type of like reasoning was instilled with me through our family. Basically, they were the one who were pushing us. All my brother and my sister, we all completed the colleges, and we went different directions. But this was very important for them. Is they always said, we want as a parents to make sure that you as a person are as diverse and have a lot of interest, and then secondly you come as an athlete. So that obviously that was the big influence from them. In terms of the career choice, they had absolutely no like when I told them that I'm going to this, they would say like, we've never imagined you being in finance. We've never imagined you being in type of like investment roles. We could never envision that. So for them, it was. But they always stressed education as important. And how did that work for me? I think it worked great, because when you for athletes, if you want to be, well, any profession, if you want to be very successful, you have to have a laser focus. Sports kind of takes that to radicalize that and takes it to another level, because you have to be fully committed to the craft you're doing, because it's a huge competition, and secondly, you're only doing for a limited time. So everything has to come secondary. So although I was always, normal high school, started my college when I was already a pro, it was always, a number one priority. And when you stop for whatever reason, in my case, it was very radical again, because I was, due to health reasons, I had to stop. I was, 24, 25.
Yeah.
Came as a huge shock, but having that background in education, having that ability to, pushing myself on that front as well, opened many doors, which, to be honest with you, I wouldn't have those options if I didn't continue studying when I was in Croatia. If I didn't study and apply for schools in US, I wouldn't have those options. I wouldn't have the option to, now we're talking about investments in Infobip, or I have investing in, and being part of a great private equity fund in New York, and having different colleagues, different life, different experiences. I would be short of that. Again, having said that, sports is still a huge part of my life. I still work out every day. Worked out this morning early before I left. Like there's almost not a day where I don't work out. But again, that kind of opened the doors to much bigger platform, and something that I'm really proud in my life. What happened, even though I had a huge shock in my life, I was able to recover and move into something where I feel now very happy. And it's also something that I feel it's my responsibility to younger generation who are following me, who are looking into this story, to say, you don't know what's going to happen, but if you have something in your, as to support you, it may take you a long way. So I think it's, in my case, it worked well for me. And I know in a lot of other cases, for a lot of other athletes, I would say at One Equity, we pride ourselves for having that strong athletes background. We have several, Olympic winners. We have close to 10 Olympians at our fund. It's been founded by the person Dick Cashin, who is not only a legend in investing and private equity space, but he's also a two-time Olympian. So there is, and I think the reason for all of that is if you can do both, sports gives you a lot. I mean, it gives you perseverance, it gives you how to stress under pressure, it gives you a lot of intangibles that if you can then be able to move in the other side, I think it gives you a lot of advantages.
That's really interesting. But yeah, I agree with you. You need to show to young people that they need to have options and plan B and C, as you had. But did you ever consider becoming a trainer, especially early on when your injury happened? You were probably still in your mind in sports.
Yeah. I never really thought about that option because there was just a period of time when I had to stop, and for audience, I was forced to stop due to health reasons. Maybe the audience is in sports, maybe they're into tech, maybe they're investing, but just to clarify, I was forced to stop by, doctors due to my health reasons. As a result of that, I was not able really to play sports, which meant I was not really able to, for a couple of years to commit myself to, be on a court and push myself and so on and so on. And during that time, I finished my education in Croatia. I already moved to US, I applied to schools in US. So by the time when, in a sense of like, sports, when I recovered to be fine, it took a couple of years, and then I was already on a different path. And that path took me to where we are now. But I'm still mentoring a lot of people. I'm still helping them. When I was in US with Columbia University, I'm very close to the tennis team there. I still train with them. I play, I give advice also in Split or in Zagreb when I'm in Croatia as well, or when I'm doing certain camps in US. I try to, sports gave me a lot. I still have a huge passion for sports. I love it. It's part of my DNA. It's part of the DNA of my family. All three of us siblings. So I have an older brother, younger sister. We all started in tennis.
Yeah.
So it's just something that I feel it's my duty to give back. Although I'm not full-time trainer, there's still a lot of things that I can see and an experience that I went through, and so I still feel whoever wants to listen, I'm there to give advice. I don't feel like it's my duty to like push into something, but most of the time there's a lot of younger people who kind of ask me for advice, and I think it's also like what we talked earlier is do we turn pro? Do we stay in school? Do we do this? Do we that? Like, I kind of went through it both. A little bit different route, but I love mentoring that. That's huge part of what I like to do in my free time, and kind of connecting the love that I have for sports, and it still gives me a chance to like give back and see what's going on in the sports world, because things are changing. I mean, same as in business.
Yeah.
Things change a lot and they change quickly. You can't say, oh, this is how it was done. No. I mean, technology is getting into sports, research is getting into sports, a lot of investments getting. And, when we talk about connections between sports and business, I think one of the main connection is there's no status quo.
Okay.
That's literally the only reason. Either you're growing and you're creating value, and you're making decisions, and you're improving your strategy and you are, going, one way or another, or competition is behind you and they're stealing your, your lunch, as they say in sports. In sports, they beat you. In business, it takes a little bit longer to see it because, you don't really play on the court with live TV and, so you know exactly the outcome, but people in industry know whether these guys invested in products, whether they invest here, whether they invest, or they're lagging, or what's happening. So that's something that it's, for me, very similar. And that's why I feel very comfortable in this role, because it just almost feels like, well, I've been doing it for such a long time. And the mindset that I have is you can apply it in a sense here, because I can say to people, listen, like, no, we can't. We got to try to do this or try and fail, and it's fine. I mean, but there is, there's some of, we look at between 600 to 800 companies a year. So sometimes you hear we're good. And my answer is you're not good. You cannot be good. You either are making decisions, or if you say you're good, you will see the results in a year or two or three. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if you don't do anything, things will happen. Competition will get better. Other people will invest. Other people will create opportunities. So there's just something that I feel comfortable, because it feels like almost I've done it for such a long time in sports, and it is a very connected thing. And if you look at, Silvio, Roberto, Izzo, I mean, they're still pushing hard. They're still finding the way. They're still on the road. And it's, again, it's exciting to be part of the team of people and team of leaders who are thinking that way.
We actually missed a chapter in your life and career while we were talking, and that's the law. You actually finished law school in Croatia, in Split, and at Columbia in New York. And if I'm not mistaken, you passed the bar exam.
Yeah.
That's pretty hard. What drew you to law, and how does that knowledge from your education and working in law helps you today in making?
No, it's very interesting. I mean, I've, same as I had, different visions of how my sports, because I was planning to play mid-30s, my life stopped from a sports perspective, changed it, went different direction. I was always thinking that I'm going to be involved in like a sports law, like a sports lawyer, sports agent, something like that. So having the legal background helped a lot, would help a lot. We all look at Jerry Maguire. I was like, I can't believe it. But it's, I would say that after my career, when I moved to US, at Columbia, when it basically like the way the JD program is set is kind of opens a lot of doors, and and that's more like a US type of view on education. Is like, we will give you the best education, therefore you can go in different directions. Like, for example, we have engineers and mathematicians who work in finance industries. So it's more like a you can study one thing, but you can figure out other, because it is touching in certain parts. In other parts, they're saying, well, listen, we'll give you the best education, you figure out, because obviously in US you have, a lot of opportunities. So that was, for me, as I was kind of getting into quote unquote normal life, and I was in New York, I was at Columbia, for me, I know it's, people laugh, but for me it was a huge thing. I was waking up in my own bed. I had like as a tennis player, you are on the road like 300 days a year. You're constantly traveling, you're constantly away. And for me, it was like refreshing to know, I'm like, okay, I'm actually waking up in the same bed. I'm like having breakfast. I'm seeing friends. Like, I'm starting to build this network here. And as a result, a lot of that was also like, was part of soul searching, because they say, listen, one of the experiences of being in Columbia is you have a great education, but you also are, in New York. So take advantage of that. Like, go out there and, have coffee chats, meet these people. And so I started meeting people in different industry, you know, legal industry, business industry, finance, sports. And as I was like, you know, navigating, I had a great opportunity. I was an intern. I did an internship at the NBA. Saw how like the first class sports organization is run. And, you know, and when I was kind of talking to different people, kind of felt like, you know, business and, you know, this type of finance, more type of investing roles, I'm getting more and more interested about them as opposed of just you know, like a legal career, which again, it's a, you know, you look at the similar deals just from a different lenses. And, you know, in all the deals that I'm still working with, I'm working with lawyers as well. So, but it was just different lenses, and this type of like finance slash investing was something a little bit more appealing to me. But having the legal background helps a lot, because I think you're thinking about, you know, you're thinking about kind of the what can go wrong and how can I protect that, in a sense, because as everything in life, if thing goes well, it goes well, and but you have to try to make sure that if things don't go as well, how do I protect? What are the safeguards? What's the governance? And a lot of these things still helps me, although I'm not, you know, working as a lawyer. I moved, you know, almost 8 years ago into finance, but still I feel like there was a great training. Let's put it that way. It's a great training. It creates you, you know, it gives you certain, you know, same as they say, being an engineer, it's a great training. Like, it doesn't really matter what, you know, we talked earlier, there's people look at different businesses, but with that engineering mindset, I think I've also felt in my case, having that, you know, legal background as well, like, you know, this type of analytical thinking and, you know, breaking down problems helped me as well in what I'm doing now.
So analytical thinking, which is a good transition. You already mentioned that private equity is more about numbers than we see. You track hundreds of companies each year. How do you do that? How do you track like trends, select companies? Has technology like AI obviously helped along the way? How does that work out?
Well, I mean, if you look at it, what's changed, it changed a lot. Well, a couple of things. First of all, I mean, we all take it for granted, but we all live in Zoom and Teams and world now. I mean, it's almost, when people were saying that before COVID, people were like, wait, what? Although you had capabilities, but it wasn't as you know, people were not using it, which gives you actually more of opportunities to talk and have, let's say, those analytical diligence. You can do it over phone now. Well, over Zoom, because you can, you know, bring the data, you can bring it, people can look at it, we can discuss. So I think there's a lot of things that you can help a lot, you know, post-COVID, in terms of technology, that you can now helps your diligence. You can help, which means basically scanning the company, like try to look at certain, what happened here, what happened there, look at the margins, look at the financials, you know, try to really dig into and understanding the company and the space. So in that sense, it changed a lot. I would say it's in a sense of, we're still, investing roles are still people's business. You're doing business with people. So you have to be on the road, you have to meet them, you have to be there, you have to be present, you have to, you know what drives people, you have to know what their strategy is, you have to know their strength, weaknesses as a manager. Those are the things you have, like, it's almost like it's impossible to do it unless you're there. You have to like feel what they're saying, especially. So I would say that part still remains, even as I mentioned, we as a fund, we look at between 600 to 800 companies a year. So there's a lot of companies we meet, which means there's a lot that you're on the road, but there's a lot of, let's say, this type of analytical that we were talking about, like there's a lot of these analytical type of like background discussions that you can now do with the exchange kind of post-COVID. That also helps because now you can, you don't have to maybe waste each other's time for something that you can, spend a couple hours or a couple of days and then do all these sessions. But I would say it's a mix, and it is something, again, like I said in the beginning. The reason why I went more into private equity is, I would say VCs probably look the same amount of companies, different, obviously different stages, but I just like more this later stage of companies because there's data to analyze. There's just constantly you're analyzing, you're discussing, together with your team, because we always look at companies in deal teams. So it's always 2 or 3 people, my colleagues. We're trying bouncing ideas of, what do you think about this space? Well, what if this happens? What if this happens? So, and there's a lot of data that you have to assess and try to back your argument with. So that's something what I like. But I would say it changed. But again, there is still this notion of, it's still a people's business, and you are partnering with a certain person, for better or worse, for certain, for at least a couple of years. What I say to when I'm talking to other companies, and I said, listen, we think we can be good partners for you because of, blah blah blah. But you have to deal with us too. So, but that's all type of that process, because what we feel is, once you made the investment, the show goes on. I mean, that's where the clock starts kind of ticking, and things that you've discussed with the founders of management is, let's go now and start implementing it. So
Yeah, the interesting part for me is, again, like with tennis and sports, where you mentioned there's all this technology, but the human factor is crucial. The same is true for PE.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You have to know what drives people. You have to know what's pushing people. You have to know how to react as manager when there's a stressful situation. I mean, these are things that are important, and those are the ones which make good leaders or bad leaders. And these are things that, I mean, it's all a work in progress for all of us. And you're constantly improving, and you're constantly changing, and you're constantly, but like you said, it's in particularly for Infobip, that the vision of the founders is bigger, better, stronger. We're just getting started.
Yeah.
And that's the team that's the team that's exciting, because that, okay, we have this, we have arguments, we have different opinions on something, and so on and so on. I mean, which is normal. I mean, we're bouncing ideas of each other, but at the end of the day, we feel we're going in the same direction, which I think it's always the most important thing. What I felt in sports, what I feel in business is as long as we have the same goal, as long as we're both working on the same thing on all our different sides of the pot, that's very important. Therefore, I think it's very important to also plan things in advance and saying, okay, what are we doing here? How can we help you? What is the plan? Which is something that I felt we try as a fund to over communicate things, so that everybody have expectations on what's expected. Because if you want to go in a different direction, or there's different plans, that's fine too, but maybe then we're not a great partner for you, and that's fine. So I think the communication, leadership, personal growth or changing, ability to perform under pressure, are just something that it's very similar to sports and business, and it's something I felt for me, and definitely some of my colleagues that were at One Equity, having that world-class sports experience helped us. I'm sure there are other experiences that help other people, but this, in our case, it felt that sports was the one that's connecting all this, business mindset.
About the performance, just to ask, if you had to choose, who do you think in general deals better with like stress and like dealing with stress and performance, like world-class athletes or world-class like founders?
Tough question.
I mean, it's a tough question. It's a tough question.
Controversial one.
It's a controversial. I mean, it's a different type of pressure. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I would say there is more pressure on the founders because, in a sense of there's hundreds of people that, if the business is doing well, people need to get their salary. These, thousands people that they have their families, their kids, so as an athlete, you don't have that responsibilities. So there's different type of pressure where, from a physical perspective, where you're pushing yourself really hard and deep and you're feeling the pain, than world-class athlete, which is also connected to how you're dealing with that. But different. I mean, it's obviously like, taking responsibilities and driving a company is obviously, or taking responsibility and driving your team and helping your team grow, and because in the day, each sports is I mean, sports are different, but they're almost the same. I mean, similar mindset you have to have if you want to be good. But I think there's also a huge component, as I said, like there's constantly, I would say this responsibility to a lot of people. I would say that's something that's, I'm sure a lot of founders, when I talk to them, this is something that keeps them up in the night, because it's something that they feel personally responsible to all these people there are working with them to keep growing and keep building the business.
Let's go back to your relationship with founders of the companies you invested in. How does that relationship look like day to day? How involved are you in their business decisions, meetings, etc.?
I would say, as a fund, we take the approach that we try to be very active, and we try to be very involved. Of course.
What does that
What does it mean? Yeah, that's I was just trying to get there. So, it's tough to say. If they're different. There's different. Type of, like, let's say there's a family that own a company for 3 or 4 generations or stuff, or there's it's been in their, like, in their DNA for a long time. Then of course it's things are always sensitive, because at some point you need to, like, sometimes be a bearer of bad news because you want to improve, or they can push you as well. But I would say we try to say to the founder, listen, like, we'll never know as good of the industry or particular product in details as much as you will, and that's fine. But there's a certain parts of where we're very strong, so we can complement each other, and which means I would say we talk on a daily/weekly basis with some of our founders in management, because there's always something that could be something that we can, split. You go here, you go there. Like, so I mean, it's and then there could be, like, few weeks where it's a little bit more quiet. But I would say we tend to be very active. We tend to have a daily/weekly discussions with our partners, and we're kind of like, we like to be, we like to know, and we always say, listen, like, we would like to, we can help you here, we can help you there, or, okay, you went to Germany, how's the market there? What's happened? Like, who did you talk to? What happened? So I would say there are constant discussions, updates, strategy discussions. Of course, when there's things that are like, bigger, like, okay, we need to get to US and this is the company we're buying. Obviously, that was very intense. I mean, we would talk to the, with Infobip founders in particular, we would talk several times a day. And of course, there's certain periods where, okay, we are now, making sure we integrate everything. Well, let's make sure it hurts. So maybe there's a little bit less, but I would say on a daily/weekly basis, we try to talk to our partners, founders, CEOs. Sometimes, I mean, also like the relationship grows. So first you start with the founders, and then maybe that founder is a CEO as well, which is the case at Infobip. But maybe they're not. Maybe they're just shareholders. Maybe they say, listen, like, this is a team of management, so feel free to call whoever. So sometimes you talk to head of sales, sometimes you talk to CFO. Probably that's somebody we work the closest one is a CFO, given our background as well, to make sure but sometimes we talk to the COO, like, okay, sometimes we talk to marketing. So there's all these different, avenues that we also build relationship with the management or some employees as well to make sure like we get a real-time feedback. And usually I hope a lot of people at Infobip can say that we're very approachable. I mean, we have a lot of, different, I was mentioning, Silvio, Roberto, and Isabel. But I have to say we have a great relationship with a lot of other people, and I don't want to mention here, so I don't want to like people, but there's a 20, 30 people at least that we're constantly talking to, and there are people in US, there are people in Croatia, there and the different parts, also Asia Pacific, in EMEA. I mean, I feel we are trying to also to reach out, and I think that's also like, if I would say to Silvio, hey, like, what's happening here? Like, oh, can we like use just call whoever, like call Matija, call Ivan, call Goran, call whoever, and I think that type of like involvement is perfect for us, because you then feel you have a good grasp of what's happening in the whole company. So I hope that answers your question.
I'm curious also, like, you're into data, obviously, but I also want to hear your opinion if you don't have the data to back it up even. Like, you come from Croatia, small country, which now has 2 unicorns. So we have Infobip, we have Rimac Automobili. How do you think like having a unicorn, having that kind of tech company impacts a country like Croatia that again has like 4 million people? What's the impact for like the economy, the society, and so on?
And can it help us, Croatia, brand itself like a tech country, not only sports country, because we are famous regarding tennis or football, but can Croatia also become a tech country because of that?
Well, you said, and we're one of the leaders in the world based on per capita on the, you said we're 4, maybe a little less million people. And I think that's, Croats tend to sometimes be negative on how things are in their own country. But this is also something to be proud. I mean, same as we're proud when, when we're playing the final of the World Cup, when we are winning medals and Olympic medals in sports, when we're winning Davis Cups in tennis, and supporting our athletes. I mean, having 2 unicorns and being one of the leaders in the world based on, per capita in that is something to be proud. I mean, that's a start. I think it has a huge impact. There's some data impact, obviously, in the GDP, but there's also some impact that it's, I feel it's almost like changes people's mindset and it's creating the society of excellence. Let's put it that way. And I'll tie it again to sports. I'm from Split. Split is in particular known for having great athletes. When I was growing up in Split, I was looking up at, Tony Kukoc, Goran, our famous water polo players, swimmers. I mean, Split per capita has the most Olympic medal. I think one of the most Olympic medal in the world. Yeah. So people who I was looking up to, people who I was meeting on the streets when they would come, are people who were Olympians. So my goal was like, I just, it's not, my goal was like, I want to be Olympics, because I was like, oh, that's a normal thing. It wasn't like, and I know, people say more and more culture matters, and it really does. It matters in the company, it makes a society. It just shifts your mindset, because I know there was, and you're training towards that when you're young age. You're not training, oh, let me just be an okay player. Like, no, I'm training when I was 11, 12. I'm like, remember these guys in 92, in 96, when they were winning medals, what it meant for Croatia, when they were coming home, when they were coming to Zagreb or Croatia or Split. I was like, oh, it's like, and I see these people on the streets, I'm like, okay, if that guy made it, my goal should be an Olympic, even though I didn't really even comprehend the importance of the Olympic Games.
Yeah.
Using the same analogy is, now there's, as we were moving away from communists towards, the democracy, there was a shift in, people's mind. They will see, they see Silvio driving his business. He could have a job anywhere. He started his own business. Rima started too. There's a lot of, we already have a couple of exit in other tech companies. Mm-hmm. So I think young people are saying, well, I see Silvio in Zagreb, I see him in Vodnjan, I see Rima, it's like I see these guys. They're like, here, like, why don't I create something? And there is a sense of already like a Croatian tech scene, when you kind of drilling into it. There is a lot of like a positive, and it's almost like I feel it's a different part of the society almost. But when you go when you go to these events, when you're meeting these entrepreneurs, they're in New York, they're in San Francisco, they're in London, they're opening office, they're saying, well, yeah, Silvio, we know him, he gave us advice, or we know this guy. So there's a really good momentum. And I feel, using the sports analogy, I feel it's becoming more and more now, okay, these guys did it. Sky's the limit. We have great universities. Let's start, especially in tech, where it doesn't really matter where you are. You can start a business anywhere. And a lot of these things are saying, well, we see these guys did it. Why don't I do it? Why don't I try? And that's something where I feel it's becoming, the notion why US is so successful in startups is because they're almost promoting it's okay to fail. How many of these entrepreneurs we're seeing in US, oh, we tried 5 companies, didn't work, but 6th one, oh, unicorn. And for us, we kind of like, for a long time, there's a difference. They say, do you play to win or are you afraid to lose? It's a small thing. And in sports, you always play to win. And I felt in a lot of businesses, we're kind of fear to lose. So like, oh, we're not going to go to certain regions because, oh, let's just stay here in our domestic market, or let's stay here. And now, I think there was a great mind shift when, Infobip bought 2 companies in US. Here we are. We are making our move. We have great products. We're international. So I feel there's a lot of entrepreneurs now that, I'm sitting in New York, that's a headquarters of the fund. I'm hearing, I get Croatian entrepreneurs when they reach out, they got a number from Silvio or they know me and say, oh, we were in San Fran and we went to Colorado, in Austin, we went to Miami, there was a great conference, we're in New York, like, let's meet, what are you thinking about this, what are you thinking about that? Should we like grow, should we exit, should we like... So I feel there's a great momentum. So that's one thing. I think it changes definitely mentality. And then I think there's going to be more data driven, which once you have like what Estonia did, what other like countries did, is once we're, successful in those unicorns, there's a huge list of people who are successful and they'll be wealthy. They're going to start creating their own businesses. So it's kind of creating the whole, from these unicorns, you kind of start creating that ecosystem that we're talking about, which kind of you want to build a society of excellence. And I feel in tech in particular, we can really continue. We are one of the leaders based on that. I think we can continue doing that, because I also know that Silvio has helped so many entrepreneurs that would come and ask for advice. Well, how did you do this? I mean, having somebody like that as a mentor, I mean, it's already a huge thing.
Yeah.
I know that sports has been something that defines us for a long time. I wish as an athlete to continue to do that, but I also hope that we also become a country that's known for, basic for startups and tech, because I think it will also diversify us from tourism that's been highly driven for the country, and maybe we're too exposed.
That's true. Well, in the end, I have one challenge for you. The challenge is that you have to give an answer in one sentence or in one word. So what is one thing you can say both in tennis courts and in a room full of investors?
What can I do?
One thing you can say both in tennis court and in a room full of investors.
Take your time.
Yeah.
We're just getting started.
Nice one.
Of course. And with that, we finish our podcast. Thank you, Madam, for being our guest, and see you in the next episode of the podcast with our next guest. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.